Hello and good evening. My name is Muhammad Rahwan from Group 5 Bauhaus Minimalism are going to talk to you about Bauhaus. Bauhaus, or known as Tachidis Bauhaus, was an art school in Germany that operational in 1919 to 1933. There are three buildings of Bauhaus. The first one in Weimar, second in the south, and last but not least in Berlin. The founder of Bauhaus, Walter Gropius, founded Bauhaus in Weimar, the first school of Bauhaus. Bauhaus in Germany means school of building. Even though the term and the founder was an architect, the Bauhaus doesn't have any architect department during its first year of existence. Okay, so let's talk about the first artist, a Swiss designer, painter, and teachers, Johannes Itten.
Bauhaus, artist first, Johannes Itten. Johannes Itten, born in November 11, 1888, Sudenlinden, Switzerland, and died in March 25, 1967, Zurich, Switzerland. He joined the School of Bauhaus from 1919 to 1923 as a master. He encouraged his students to explore their own feelings and to experiment with colors, materials, and forms instead of copying the old masters. His course emphasized three elements: studies of natural forms and colors, the analysis of canonical artworks, and life drawing. He is also known as a pioneer of holistic art teaching, a philosophy of education based on the premise that each person find identify, meaning, and purpose in life through connections to the community, to the natural world, and to humanitarian values such as compassion and peace through art. He ran his own art school in Vienna 1916 and in Berlin 1926. Some of his art is The Encounter, Study of Contrast, and Tower of Fire. The Encounter 1916. The Encounter is a painting of a color abstraction. There is geometric shapes, dominant spiral, repeated circles and squares, and including the usage of color spectrum. It also can be understood as a study in dynamic contrast of color, created from the comprehensive range of hues. The result is a cosmic catalog of different hues combined together in a united geometric arrangement.
So how was it, Johannes Itten? The encounter. Doesn't you just question yourself about the knowledge of art that use colors, geometrical shapes? So that's all about Johannes Itten, a Swiss designer, painter, and teacher. So let's talk about our next artist, a modernist artist of Germany, Lily Rich.
Bauhaus, artist 2, Lily Rich. Lily Rich, born in June 16, 1885, and died in December 14, 1947, both in Berlin, Germany. In 1932, Lily was asked by Ludwig Mies van der Rohe to teach at the Bauhaus and direct the interior design workshop. One of her famous artwork is the Barcelona chair, a collaboration between Lily with Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. She has collaborated with van der Rohe on many successful projects. This led her to become the artistic director for the Barcelona World Exposition in 1929. For this occasion, she had designed a pavilion, and this is where the famous Barcelona chair appeared for the first time. The material used by Lily was chrome on steel frame and leather cushion filled with foam. Her next famous artwork is Apartment for a Single Person in 1931. It features a cooking cabinet. From the drawing, it appears to be an ordinary closet. When opened, it revealed a sink, shelves, drawers, and a lot of useful counter space for kettles and similar kitchen tools.
So that's all, Lily Rich. So does it make you want to take a seat relax, take a break. But I think we should hold on to that idea for a while and continue to our next artist, a Russian painter and also famous in expressionist art, Vasily Kandinsky.
Bauhaus Artistry Vasily Kandinsky. Vasily Kandinsky, born in 16 December 1866 in Moscow, Russian Empire, and died in 13 December 1944 in Neuilly-sur-Seine, France. He is credited with painting one of the first recognized purely abstract works. Born in Moscow, Kandinsky spent his childhood in Odessa, where he graduated at Grekov Odessa Art School. He enrolled at the University of Moscow studying law and economics. Successful in his profession, he was offered a professorship at the University of Dorpat. Kandinsky began painting studies at the age of 30. In 1896, Kandinsky settled in Munich, studying first at Anton Asb private schools and then at the Academy of Fine Arts. In 1896, Kandinsky settled in Munich. In 1896, Kandinsky settled in Munich, studying first at Anton Asbjörn's private school and then at the Academy of Fine Arts. He returned to Moscow in 1914 after the outbreak of World War I. Kandinsky was unsympathetic to the official theories on art in communist Moscow and returned to Germany in 1920. There, he taught at the Bauhaus School of Art and Architecture from 1922 until the Nazis closed it in 1933. He then moved to France, where he lived for the rest of his life, becoming a French citizen in 1939 and producing some of his most prominent art. One of his art is Moscow 1. Moscow 1, 1916. Moscow Red Square is an original urban landscape that is far from the task of reproducing the look of the square. Kandinsky creates an image of the center of Moscow, one of his favorite cities, partly using a futuristic method of conveying the movement of shapes. He is a kind of turning in the middle of the square and showing its major monuments. The artist wrote that he particularly loved the time when the sun goes down and melts all the Moscow down to a single spot that, like a mad tuba, start all of the heart and all of the soul vibrating. This hour of sunset is the final chord of symphony that takes every colors to the zenith of life that, like the fortissimo of a great orchestra, is both compelled and allowed by Moscow to ring out. Moscow represents duality, complexity and high level of mobility, collision and confusion of separate elements of appearance. I consider this internal and external Moscow to be starting point of my starving. Moscow is my pictorial turning fork. Kandinsky.
So, that's Vasily Kandinsky. So, how was it? What is your opinion in Moscow 1? Doesn't it just blow your mind away with the colors, the shape, the art? But let's just hold that a while because we have one more artist to go for Bauhaus, and that is a very unique artist which do metalwork, Marian Brown.
Bauhaus. Artist 4, Marian Brown. Marian Brown, born in October 1st, 1893, in Chemnitz, Germany, and died in June 18, 1983, in Kirchberg, Saxony. Brown approached her work from a functionalistic perspective, which was a revolution for her time. She is more to modernistic. Her style was influenced by her mentor's artwork. The simple clean lines of her pieces was a reflection of his style. Some of her work is model number MT49 and coffee and tea set. Model number MT49 1927. Model number MT49 was produced in silver plates, brass with an ebonized wood handle. Similar like many Bauhaus works, this piece has minimal surface decoration, but instead relies on elegant, inventive shaping for its aesthetic appeal, and includes practical design details such as the wooden handle to prevent heat conductive.
So that's the last artist, Mariam Brown from Bauhaus. So how was it? Good? Great? Clear? So that's the end of Bauhaus for today. And I hope that you have clear information about Bauhaus now. So I will pass the show to my second speaker, Amber, for minimalism.
Hello, my name is Amber and I'm from Group 5 Bauhaus X Minimalism. So today I'm going to talk about minimalism. What is minimalism? It has several aspects of medium such as visual arts, music, fashion, and lifestyle. Minimalism began in post-World War II, most strongly in American visual arts in the early 1960s to the 1970s. Minimalism derives from the reduction aspect of modernism and is usually interpreted as a reaction against abstract expressionism and a bridge to post-minimalism art practices. Let's move on to our first artist, Frank Stella, who is an American painter, printmaker, and also a sculptor, with his famous piece Die. Frank Stella's artistic range is incredible, spanning from the monochromatic black painting to multicolored mixed media works between 1958 and 1965. He experimented mainly with abstract painting like Die van Houch in 1959. In the year following of the black painting, Stella decided to produce painting with aluminum paint as his base material. The aluminum painting retained the thin stripes of their counterparts. The result is geometric illusion, like Avicenna in 1960s. The material is aluminum paint on canvas. So in mid 1960s, Stella departed from his track minimalist work to create the regular polygon painting. Stella's irregular polygon and large asymmetrical canvases composed of bold lines and colorful geometric forms like Poco Rua 5 in 1966. You see, in 1959, Frank Stella gained early immediate recognition with his series of cruelly impersonal black strip paintings that turned the guttural brushwork and existential angst of abstract expressionism on its head. So focusing on the formal elements of art making, Stella went on to create increasingly complicated work that seemed to follow a natural progression of dynamism, tactility, and scale. And first, by expanding his initial monochrome palette to bright colors, and later moving painting into the third dimension through the incorporation of other non-painterly elements onto the canvas. He ultimately went on to create large-scale, freestanding sculptures and architectural structures and the most complex work ever realized in the medium of printmaker. Stella's virtually relentless experimentation has made him a key figure in American modernism, helping him give rise to such development as minimalism, post-painterly abstraction, and color-filled painting. And so some of his famous artwork is Die van Houch, which is in a black painting, Avicenna in aluminum painting, and also the Kokorua the fifth polygon painting. So let's see the painting Die van Houch, which was created in the year 1959 with the genre of an abstract art. The style of the painting was more to minimalism, and the series was black painting, and material used were enamel paint on canvas and a brush. Characteristics of this painting was the repetitive of the same shape, which uses basic geometry formed like lines, limited to one color. By Van Houch, the painting was made by marking equal subdivision along the side, bottom, and the top edges of the canvas. Frank Stella's artistic range is incredible, spanning from the monochromatic black painting to multicolored mixed media works between 1958 and 1965. He experimented mainly with abstract painting like Van Houch in 1959. In the year following of the black painting, Stella decided to produce painting with aluminum paint as his base material. The aluminum painting retained the thin stripes of their counterparts. The result is geometric illusion, like Avicenna in 1960s. The material is aluminum paint on canvas. So in mid 1960s, Stella departed from his track minimalist work to create the regular polygon painting. Stella's irregular polygon and large, asymmetrical canvases composed of bold lines and colorful geometric forms like Coco Rua 5 in 1966.
Let's move on to our next artist, Anthony Peter Smith, or better known as Tony Smith, who is an American sculptor, visual artist, and an architectural designer, also noted in theories of art. He is often cited as a pioneering figure in American minimalist art.
So Tony Smith. Tony Smith was born on the 23rd of December 1912, but he died on December 26, 1980. He was born at South Orange, New Jersey, United States, and moved to New York City, and he died there as well. So on view of his painting, you can find it in the National Gallery of Art and Museum of Modern Art, and also the San Francisco Museum. So let's move on to Tony Smith's first steel sculpture, Die. Yep, the name is Die, D-I-E. This piece was the inspiration for much of his later works, and he had made a 6-inch cardboard model in black in 1962. However, he didn't fabricate it until 1968, and to have it made, Smith telephoned the Industrial Welding Company in Newark, New Jersey, who had the signature, "You specify it, we fabricate it," which had caught his eyes on trips to and from New York. The artist's specification for the sculpture was as followed: a 6-foot cube of 1/4-inch hot rolled steel with diagonal internal bracing. The dimensions were determined, according to Smith, by the proportions of human body. He explained that a larger scale would have endured Die with the statue of a monument, while a smaller one would have reduced it to a mere object. It is this simple yet profound observation about scale that placed Die at the center key of artistic debates. Weighing approximately 500 pounds and resting on the museum floor, the sculpture invites us to walk around it and experience it sequentially, one or two sides at a time. You see, this sculpture, deceptively simple title, invites multiple association. It alludes to die casting, to a pair of dice, and ultimately to death. As Smith remarked, 6 feet has a suggestion of being cooked. 6 foot box, 6 foot under. Rationality evoked by Dye's pure geometrical configuration is countered by the sculpture's brooding presence. Meaning becomes relative rather than absolute, something generated through the interplay of word and object, weaving together strains of architecture, industrial manufacture, and found object. Smith radically transformed the way sculpture could look, how it could be made, and how it could be understood. So the form, materials, and the impersonal surfaces of the sculpture relate to Smith's architectural background and to minimalist art of the mid 1960s. However, the artist also embraced the heroic and humanistic attitudes associated with abstract expressionist art of 1950s. Smith was a pivotal figure who bridged two generations, and Dye is now recognized as an icon of post-war American art.
So last but not least, let's talk about one of the most central figures in minimalism, Robert Morris, who is an American sculptor and also performance artist.
Robert Morris, one of the most central figures of minimalism, and through both his own sculptures of the 1960s and theoretical writing, Morris has set forth a vision of art, pared down to simple geometric shaped strip of metaphorical association and focus more on the artwork's interaction with the viewer. However, in contrast to fellow minimalist Donald Judd and Carl Andre, Morris had a more strikingly diverse range that extended well beyond the minimalist ethos and was at the forefront of other contemporary American art movements as well, and most notably process art and land art. And through both these artworks and his critical writings, Morris explored new notions of chance, temporality, and ephemerality. Before I continue to his paintings and sculptures, let's talk about Robert Morris. So he's a man born on the 9th of February 1931 in Kansas City, USA. So he focused more on art movements like minimalism and post-minimalism, but he was in fields like sculptors, art theory, and installation. So let's talk about his first artwork description. So his first artwork is entitled, in bracket, L Beams, one of Morris' best known minimalist pieces. Though it lacks any texture or trace of an artist's hand or figural content that would otherwise distract the viewer from pure engagement with arranged form. The work is composed of three L-shaped forms identical in every way, but positioned differently. One lying on its side, another resting on two edges, and the third standing erect. Form's configuration causes them to be perceived as varying in size and shape, and Morris's concern with the experimental aspects of the piece is revealed in his use of polyhedrons, which is a three-dimensional solid with flat faces and straight edges, whose forms and shape could be readily grasped by the viewer. It is also underpinned his instructions that the work to be arranged differently each time it was exhibited, so that the viewers would experience the work differently as well. So let's move on to the next artwork. It's called Box, Sound of His Own Making. And as its title indicates, Morris's box consists of an unadorned wooden cube accompanied by a recording of the sounds produced during its construction, which lasted for about 3.5 hours, and the audio component of the piece denies the air of romantic mystery surrounding the creation of the art object, presenting it as a time-consuming and perhaps even tedious endeavor. In so doing, The piece also combines the resulting artwork with the process of art making, transferring the focus from one to another. So fittingly, the first person in New York Morris invited to see the piece was John Cage, whose silent 1952 composition, about 4 feet 33 inches, is famously composed of the sound heard in the background while it is being performed. So Cage was reportedly transfixed by the box with the sound of its own making. As Morris later recalled, I quote, "When Cage came, I turned it on and he wouldn't listen to me. He sat and listened to it for 3 hours, and that was really impressive to me. He just sat there." Unquote.
So sorry to cut this short, but that is the three artists that I will be presenting in minimalism today.
So that's all for today, and we came to the end of the show.
And I hope that we shed some light on these two topics, which is Bauhaus,
And minimalism. So I'm Mohammed Rafwan.
and I am Amber.
We're from Group 5. So see you again.
Thank you.